Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a scene that I will stamp out in this instructional video. Simple composition, not really featuring anything in the sky, just a few swatches of color laid in with the stylus tools. And the main image is the river stamp right here. You see right there where I've colored it with markers, and then I've gone in and fleshed it out with some additional tone using the both the stylus tool with dye-based inks, as well as some, kind of more detailed marks with the alcohol-based pens. Okay, I've gone into this scene right here and I've added some additional gel pen marks. You can see this pink pen dots laid down here, and I did this after the video when I added some pink in here, and I thought, okay, I have these gel pens here, why not add in some additional little floral details down here to kind of tie in the idea of this pink light up here. Anyways, just a kind of a little springtime scene for all of you out in kind of areas where your winter really, the changes of the seasons really take place. Some green tones using some pens as well as the pads. And I've gone into the scene, and because I have all these little highlights, these little white dots in here, using the white gel pen, I've gone in and I've put a little thin mat of light blue on top of this kind of brown, kind of shiny stock to kind of finish off the scene in a nice matte. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the creation of this scene. Again, thanks for watching. Okay, this is the scene that we're going to be stamping out today. It's called The River, and this is just a black and white print of this image. Alright, instead of just doing it in black and white though, I thought I'd bring a little bit more of a little bit more richness in terms of the hues that are used in the initial print. So I'm going to take this stamp and color it with some pens, but to make sure, a lot of times to make sure I get full coverage, I do ink up the whole thing in some darker tone. I can do it either in black or maybe a dark brown might work too. I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to go with black. This is a black Marvy pad. When the image is larger than the stamp pad, I usually take pad to stamp, as opposed to going like this, with a really large stamp and a small pad. It's just easier to take the pad. They go like that. Here's a dark brown Marvy Matchable. And I'm just going to go into some of these areas, going into the little bushes down here. There's no real right or wrong area to go. And remember, this dark brown is kind of mixing with the black that I've already laid on there, so it's not going to be just pure dark brown. Sometimes I do a lot of coloring like this, and because I started off with a dark color, sometimes it doesn't even show the variation very much, but If that's the case, I don't know, I rarely start over. I just kind of use whatever the print comes out as. I'm looking at some areas in here. There's some little areas of grass, and you have to kind of locate them on there. But like I said, it's not a, you know, you don't have to be exact. I wouldn't even bother with something like that, because like I said, in the end, I don't know. I guess it does matter to some extent, but maybe not quite as much. I mean, sometimes it looks all black, but it's probably a little bit more of a richer palette of, you know, grays, warm blacks, cool blacks, depending on what colors I mixed in with it. The color that I'm using now, I don't know, I used some variations of, I used a dark green, it's number 4 green, number 18 brown. It's the same color as the pad. That's why they call these Marvy matchables, you know, because they match their 1500 series of pens, and I think, and they're also their multi-tip pens, the fat and the narrow-sided ones, the dual-tip ones. Okay, going into the water area, bringing in some of the, I think that, yeah, number 36. Manganese blue. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Haven't used it in a while. But anyways, we have a lot of different tones on here. Now, let me see. Let's go in and add a little bit of the light green. This is a number 11 light green. If you're writing down these colors, I don't think that's something that you really need to do. It's just any light green, okay? We're going to be bringing a lot of the colors into this scene with some other pens and applicators. So this initial print, I don't know. You could also just stamp it all in black. You know, it just depends on how much time you have. If you have a little bit more time and want to play around, adding some additional tone in there, then that's something I did there. Okay. I don't know if you can kind of see the difference right there. This one has a little bit more variations of green through there. A little bit brighter tone, and that water kind of brings it to life a little bit. This one right here, monochromatic, a little bit flatter, but like I said, I mean, I'm going to bring, you know, I could bring colors into this one as well, but this one just has it inherently. Is one better than the other? Not really. You know, on this one I can go with more, you know, darker shades and have more bold colors, and the black will stand out a little bit more. So this one I wanted to make it a little bit more airy. I wanted it to be a kind of more of a scene with full daylight kind of in there, as opposed to something more twilight. Doesn't mean that this one can't be daytime too. There's a lot of light areas in there, but just saying, you know, we have a little bit more of the different hues showing in here, like greens and blues, more indicative of something that would be, you know, seen during daylight hours. By the way, this was the Tack and Peel sticky coating on here, and you can just use bare rubber straight on there, okay? It's reusable. And I know I say that in a lot of videos, but who knows, this could be someone's, you know, first time watching any of these videos. So we try to cover everything that we can. Okay, now I could leave this as is, and this would be kind of a river kind of opening up into a larger area of the river, or it could be a pond or a lake or something like that down here. But I think I'm going to add in some foreground into the scene, alright? And this is kind of a you know, grass texture stamp, and I've just inked it up with a dark brown. It's the number 18 from the Marvy Matchables. And added a little bit more of the number 4 green. It's kind of a dark green into it. And I'll just add impressions going across the front of the card. Foreground. Seen in landscape photography a lot, where they put things in the foreground to kind of act as a framing device and to increase the depth of field of a scene. And that'll give me some opportunities if I want to add in some little effects like, you know, wildflowers or something like that growing in the grass seeds or something. Okay, so we have this area in here. It's going to be represent water. There's those little pebbles everywhere in there, and I thought I would add a few more of those. I really need to get a second acrylic block with smaller with some tack and peel on it. Okay, it's kind of overkill, huh? But it works. You can always go with smaller stamps on a larger block. You can't necessarily go with smaller, you know, bigger stamps on a small block. Okay, that was black that I just used on this stamp. It's called Tiny Rocks. And this little stream in here, it's not really deep, so we see these kind of rocks kind of underneath the water and maybe sticking out of the water in areas. So it kind of carries that texture down into this blank area for continuity. Now, I'm using these Marvy matchable pads, and I heard some pretty bad news. By the way, I'm filming this in, well, now it's December of 2013. We heard that these pads are going to be discontinued, or Uchida of America is no longer going to order them from Uchida in Japan, their headquarters, and Japan didn't plan to discontinue them, but if Uchida of America is going to not order them anymore due to the large quantity that they have to order them in, then they're just not going to make them anymore. So hopefully that's not the case, and they have, you know, they retain some of the line. I can see them discontinuing some of the 40. I don't think we need all those pads, but it's going to be a shame to kind of lose this great pad as a potential media, you know, source for the rubber stampers, crafters collection. So anyway, that was just a little side note. Okay, by and large, the composition is set right here. I'm going to go in here and start coloring it in, and we'll use some different media. I don't want to go too heavy on this in terms of the visual appearance of it. So let's see. I'm going to start off with the Adirondack Lights Aqua. It's a really light blue. And I'm just laying this color down, kind of lay it down lightly, you know, with a light touch, okay? I need to do a video on what not to do with these brush tips right here. I don't know, it's not really a brush, it's a foam tip, but I use it as a brush. But you want to be careful not to scrub back and forth with them. Adirondack Lights are a real thick and juicy. I was going to say juicy, not really juicy. It's a thick and well, it's a thick ink, so it really spreads nicely on this page. Alright, so even if I did scrub a little bit back and forth, it's not too big of a deal. But if you try that with like the Marvy pads, which are a thinner ink, alright, it's going to catch a little bit, and it really depends on what paper you're using too. But you don't want to scrub, you know, by and large, you don't want to scrub with these. You know, even if you are using a really glossy cardstock and thick inks, because you don't want to take a chance of tearing the tips of these you know, these little foam tips right here. Because if I went, a lot of times when people are starting off with a light colored ink like this, a lot of times they think that it's so light that they can't see it, so they start scrubbing harder, thinking it'll get darker, or it'll get darker faster. You know, your scene will. And they tear the tips, and then the tips will tear if, even when they're brand new if you do that. So don't scrub really hard back and forth. I'm just kind of lightly dabbing this. It's just kind of sitting on the surface of the paper, and I'm dragging it across, okay? And the cardstock does, the color gets a little bit darker, you know, the more color I put into it, it kind of gets absorbed slowly into the paper, but by and large, you know, these colors, especially the Adirondack Lights range, are going to stay very, very light, and that's what we want out of our first coating when we're using the kind of glazed, layered ink technique. Alright, now I know this is kind of hard to see in this video. This really depends on what the camera can pick up, but I have a little bit lighter in here, darker on the surrounding areas. Let's move to our next color. Let's try Memento Summer Sky. Again, a very thick ink. Okay, it spreads very nicely, and it's not much darker than the aqua. Plus, I still have aqua in this tip right here. Okay, so it's some kind of mix of the two. I've retained some of the light areas, the white of the card. Okay, let's move up into a darker color. Let's start moving into the Marvy pads. You don't have to use any of the specific brand names that I'm talking about now when I'm doing this. You know, dye-based inks are all water-based, and they're transparent. Okay, a lot of companies make them, but as I go through this, you know, the big thing, if you're kind of following along or, you know, trying to replicate this, the biggest thing is, you know, just start light and work incrementally darker with whatever colors you're using. I find that to be the easiest way to do something. Colors build slowly, you know, nice and gradually, and it's just so easy to control that way. You know, that being said, I wouldn't go from something like that, aqua, and jump up to a really dark blue like that. Alright? If you have some color that you can put in between those two, you know, that one and that one, put some, you know, medium color. Even better, you know, if you can work through a transition going from light, you know, to a little bit darker, medium, dark. Okay? That is if you're going to work through a full range of values within a certain hue. Okay. As I was saying that, see that Marvy pad? I think that was, I had this sitting right here, and it kind of soaked in, and now that's not really blending out very well. Let's go back to the Adirondack blue, okay, and get that kind of coated with a little bit more of that real slippery ink, okay. Move into that color again, okay. Okay, so you can dab like this, and then drag it, okay, blend it in if you want to. I can do that with this thinner ink, and it's not soaking in, you know, like a ball like that very quickly, because I've coated it with the thicker base layers of the Adirondack Light and Memento. Okay, let's go into the sky. See, I'm kind of always turning this card in the direction that the movement is the most ergonomic. I find it easier to drag like this, okay? So I don't always have to have it like this, you know, and, you know, it kind of positions me to do that kind of scrubbing movement, you know, like that. So I just turn the card like it's on a Lazy Susan. Okay, alright. Let's move up to that medium blue here. The medium blue is actually called light blue in the Marvy matchable range. Sometimes I tip the applicator on its side so I get a very narrow streak. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit here. Okay. The area that I don't color in is going to represent that kind of vapor in the sky, the moisture, which should be a cloud. Okay, you see how I'm giving the edge of this kind of a sandy bank a little bit of definition by taking the colored blue and coloring it from that point down. It doesn't have to be so crisp. I wouldn't mask that off, you know, because I want some of that color to be going up in there. And that'll give those two areas a little bit of continuity. If there was too much of a distinction, you know, a real sharp distinction between the two, it might look like two separate areas, and two separate areas that are kind of unrelated to each other. You know, in this case, I would bring some of that into it. I think I'm going to use some browns and tan colors in that area, so I'll bring some of those tans down into the water as well. Okay, this is the number 3 blue, and it's a fairly dark blue. Okay. I was going to do a winter scene, but I think psychologically I was sitting around the house here kind of cold the entire day, so I think I wanted to do something less wintry. Okay, this is a number 34. Pale green. It's a very light green. Okay. We have these grassy areas back in here. Why not bring some of that green into those areas? Don't color up the whole thing. You know, just don't color up the whole region one value or consistent application of green. You want to have kind of the terrain and the objects in it kind of turn in space. You know, in other words, you want kind of an oscillation of lights and darks, shadow and whatnot, lighting. It's a cloudy day, so you know, if we were talking about something kind of more realistic, I don't know. That's really the wrong word to use in this case, you know, when we're doing something with stamping, but I guess it would be kind of more, if you want to create a terrain that's kind of a little bit more reflective of, you know, falling light, then you'd have it kind of, you know, the lighting kind of oscillate with the, you know, the different shapes in here. These are kind of soft shapes of grasses, you know, so you have some shadows and highlights in them. So do the same with your coloring, because when you color, you know, I mean, we're not adding a light green over a dark green and having the whole area look light. These are transparent inks, so the more ink you add, the darker it will become. So even if I add something really light on something dark, it's just going to look darker because you just keep adding more ink on top of it, okay? So if you want some areas, all of that being said, if you want some areas to be kind of light, then just don't color them out, okay? Leave them the light of the lighter colors of ink that you've laid down, or even the white of the paper that you started off with. Okay, that was a memento. It's called Bamboo Leaves. I didn't set any of these pads out before I started saying, okay, I'm going to use these things, you know, and, you know, this, and this. And these just happen to be on my table here, so I thought, okay, you know, let's try that memento one. It is a green, so why not? So, like I said, if you don't have certain ones, you know, the big point right now is I'm getting into the darker greens right now because I moved through, you know, a couple light ones. Okay, that was the number 4 green. It was the same green that I used in pen form. Okay. Now, one of my go-to kind of moves, I guess, when it comes to using a lot of greens. I don't like it to be so green, okay? It just doesn't look very rich to me. It looks rich in terms of value, you know, in terms of light and dark, but in terms of hue, I usually don't like it just as is, so this is what I'm going to do. I go to my pale orange. This is the number 16. It's kind of like a tan color, and it's very light, okay? So I'm going to use it in this kind of sandy bank right here, and already it's kind of really influencing what I've already kind of laid down in terms of colors, because what we're doing is we're adding warm in a dominantly, you know, a cool dominant scene. So this is kind of the first kind of warm tone that I've added in here. So we're seeing not only a range of values going from, you know, light colors to dark colors, but now we're going with extending kind of the value range. I mean, the temperature range. We have warms and cools now. Okay, that was the pale orange, and going back to that thing that I was talking about with the green, I'm adding it into the green. That was my first. Now you see why I'm doing this? Because the pale orange is kind of like a tan, and it's lighter than that medium brown, so I'm starting with a light tone within a given, range of hue. And now I'm going to its darker sibling, and this is the number 6 Marvy Matchell Brown. Okay, see it down here. Let's add some of it along that area right there where grass meets sand. Okay, I'm just going like this, adding little nicks like this. Okay, and see I've added those base layers, the lighter color, down as a foundation, so that these darker colors really blend for me nicely on the glossy cardstock. Okay. Now this isn't super wet right here. I can go like this, and it's it's dry to the touch, but the pulp of the paper is a little bit moist from getting saturated with the the inks, the different layers of ink. Okay. All right. Now see, I'm going and adding this brown over the top of this green, and it's looking more like an olive green maybe, with a lot of variation. Okay, and I like that much better than just say the straight greens. It was too electric looking, of a green for me. Without this brown. All right. Okay. So that was the brown. Okay, up here in the sky, let's address some of that. What we have right now is just the blue trio. No. Quartet. Alright. Actually, okay. I use the Memento too, but you get the point. Let's try to really push the idea of water being a kind of a reflective surface of what's going on around it. In this case, in the sky right here, what we have is kind of a white light being reflected down here on the surface of the water. I'm starting off with a very light tone again, and getting some of this color into the sky. Okay, I think I need to re-ink this pad, but I don't know. That's fine. Very light shade of pink I might have to go to. You can kind of see it there a little bit. Let's take that light, okay, there's a little bit of pink light, and let's bring it into the sandy area, okay, and I'm going to carry this out. Now see, it's real safe for me to use this like I am in all these areas. I mean, you can barely see it, okay, but the more tapping I do, the more it kind of stands out, which means it takes longer to apply, but there's a lot more control over it that way, okay? And that's what you kind of want. You want control over what you're doing, over what you're applying. I mean, if you get the feel for it and you want to go with a darker color, faster, then go ahead and by all means jump in right into it. If you're real familiar with the colors and what it's going to look like over the top of something. Personally, I just want to, kind of move in, at a nice gradual pace. This is the bubblegum pink, and it's a fairly bright pink, okay? Much brighter than, seashell pink, okay? And taking it into this water area, introducing it into that lighter area. I don't want to wipe out all of the white, okay? But I just want to get a hint of this color in. Well, maybe it's more than a hint, you know. But I don't want to just obliterate all of my previous light areas, okay? So let's see that right here. We have it in sky, land, okay. I see I'm losing the light. Here we go. Land and water, all right? I can even bring a little bit of it in there. So it really reiterates the idea of, you know, kind of the light source and reflected light. What is that light going to look like reflected over the various areas of the scene? And since this is your scene, or whatever, you know, when you're stamping a scene, you're saying that, yes, that is indeed what it's supposed to look like. Okay, you're kind of a lighting director, and this is your stage. Okay. Now let's see. Boy, you know how I was saying that kind of I just kind of get into these things and it's completely unrehearsed. I should really think about all the different images that I might use in here. I'm thinking it really needs something down here in terms of subject matter. And I'll figure something out. Okay. Let's go in and do our foreground. Let's go in with some stronger blades of grass here, and I knew it. I'm using the bottle green. This is bottle green. Here's my black right here. Alright, I used bottle green on here. Bottle green is a very dark green. It even fooled me in terms of, you know, the pad. So let's just go with it. Sometimes I do this. I bring multiple values, okay, into a certain area of depth. In this case, the area of depth that I'm referring to is the foreground. Bottle green is dark enough to where it, you know, things in the background really don't show through it, but let's go with a black now. Okay, this is all bottle green down there. And kind of stagger this. Don't try to go right over the top of, you know, the reeds that you stamped before. Kind of go a little bit off center so that you have some darker reeds and some lighter. Alright, and you're not just covering them up. So you can kind of achieve depth, you know, within a small representational space. In this case it was the foreground again. Okay. So I'm thinking I want something kind of up here or something down here. I want something, some kind of focal point in the scene. So I'm going to try to think of that. Let me see something right here. I was thinking about some tree, you know, some dead tree kind of growing out, maybe where the water recedes. Sometimes the tree is able to grow, and when the water kind of goes up, it kind of kills off the tree. There's a lake around here that's kind of like that, but this might be too big. Anyways, let me kind of figure that out, and I'll kind of finish off the stamping portion of this scene. Okay? Okay, I'm back. Alright, I was just gone maybe a minute, and I took a look over my stamps, and I came up with these two. I think to scale they would work. I think. gonna have this couple here of hikers kind of stamping, walking into the scene right here. I think that would work. Or you don't want to have too much of a busy background. I wouldn't want to have these two hikers in front of this river, okay? Because if I stamp this over the top, I mean, they're fairly, dark and almost silhouette in shape, but there is still open area, so that would show through. So I have to have it kind of where there's not too much activity around it, for them to really stand out. Okay, I think that would work like that. That's too far back. They would be like giants, compared to all those trees. Lower in the horizon means that their representation, the representation of them is, that they're closer to you. They call it Western perspective. This is another choice right here. I was thinking this guy could be walking around in his, the ranch or something like that. Then I thought it might actually be interesting to kind of put this horse, like it's walking in the water, and kind of ink it up and not, take the ink off its legs, so wherever it is, but I don't know. I guess these hikers, do it. Yeah, I don't like that guy over there. I kind of like them, like they're hiking to this area, this river. I'm going to do them in black. Okay, let me see. Yeah, I think that'll work nicely. Okay. I'm kind of holding this down. Light, even pressure to make sure that ink transfers over there. I mean, this card is fairly dry to the touch, but... Okay. A couple hikers there. Alright. Kind of walking down to the shoreline there. That's kind of fun. Alright. I can even have that horse in the background. Too much though, right? Alright. Let's see now. I can get a little color in them. I think I'll do that, but I'm going to wait till it sets up. Why don't we have a little fun with some kind of light tones in here? Pull out your Copic markers or whatever kind of markers you have. I happen to be using the Marvy Le Plume permanent alcohol ones. Let's see here. Here's a fairly light blue. Let's go in. Go around this shoreline. Okay, kind of where the this is a very light blue. I kind of use these pens in the same way that I do the inks that I'm applying. I usually start very light. Okay, this is I'm going to add in some shadows to these rocks down here. Okay. Fairly light blue. That light blue shows up in this light area, but it doesn't show up over here because this area is darker. So let's move up to a darker pen. Okay, so if there's shadows on these rocks, does it stand to reason that hikers would also be casting shadows? And I think yes. Okay, so if blue, in the area of blue down here, we're creating blue shadows, in the sandier area up here of browns, maybe their shadows are a darker brown. Okay. I think to kind of incorporate those hikers in with the surrounding area, maybe I'll give them, let's say, the female is wearing a green outfit, and they say that a landscape photographer's what was it, secret weapon or something like that is someone in the scene with a red shirt. And let's put him in there. That. Maybe it's his backpack. Okay. We used a lot of greens back here in the grassy areas. The hair is kind of a bright light lime green. And these are alcohol pens, and with the inks that I've been using, I don't find it smears anything that I've already laid down, you know, with the dye-based, water-based inks, okay? That's what's kind of nice about using the an alcohol-based variety of pen. Okay. Oh, I forgot I had some of this area down here. I think that's going to be too bright there, though. But let's add a little bit of it. Okay, this is a kind of lime green, but it's too much. So let's go to a lighter one and just kind of blend that out a little bit. Kind of on glossy cardstock. If you don't wait too long, and you use your lighter colors as blenders for the darker tones that you just laid down, and there's some time to kind of blend it out. So I'm kind of blending out marks, just like I wanted to blend, things with the stylus tools and the dye-based inks. Okay. So see, it's kind of the same process for me. I start light and I kind of work darker. I guess, I don't know, with the pen, I just laid down some colors in there and I went with the lighter one to blend it out. But, still the basic thing is I'm kind of looking for transitions, smooth transitions of values within a certain color range. Okay, so kind of a simple composition right here. Almost done. Okay, my trusty pigment inks right here. Let's say this couple is going out for a early morning hike. They got an early start, and there's, I want to get a little bit of texture in here with some mist kind of in these grassy areas, or there's a little bit of a diffusion happening. I'm taking this pigment ink here, and I have way too much on it right now. Let me kind of fray the end here too. Dabbing off a lot of the ink and going in, and let me see. I'm kind of out of practice with doing these videos. I forget everything. Try to keep it within the frame so you can see what I'm doing here. Kind of adding a bit of a mist at the base of their legs. Okay, see that right there? Because that gives it some variation. I think that would look good up here too. You see those dark trees right there? Perfect opportunity to kind of add a little bit of variation to them. Like there's kind of some mist at the base of them hanging out towards the grass. See that right there? Here's what those trees look like right there. And I've added that little bit of mist down at the base. I'll show you what I'm doing right here. Let me see. Imagine this is colored, okay? And I'm just adding this. I kind of forgot which side of the Q-tip I was using. Okay. Okay, see what that does? It changes the value at the base of it, so you have dark, light, and you have crisp and soft. So you have all these textural value and texture changes happening in a very small area right there. And I think that's kind of the thing that can really add a nice element into a scene. Don't do it everywhere, because it would look too much. But you add it here and there, and the scene really starts to come alive, you know. It's like almost like it starts to breathe, you know. When you have this kind of vapor or something, you know. It doesn't have to be that. I'm just saying kind of details in general like that. Little things, okay? Like here's this crisp water's edge right there, and you see it. I've kind of added some over there. Let me see if I can do this. I'm just kind of completely doing this as I'm looking through the viewfinder, but okay. See that right there? It just kind of diffuses that edge a little bit. It's not so sharp everywhere. Maybe up here too. See that right there? Okay. Anyways, it's hard to work like that, look into the viewfinder. But little things like that are really fun to do. There's a big blob of ink right there, so I'm just going to kind of blot some of it off. I don't want all of it. Okay. Add some in the distance. The trees in the distance are already kind of, the image itself is, I've drawn them to where they're kind of fade off a little bit, but let's have them do that even more with some, you know, light pigment ink. Okay, now the pigment inks is water-based, but it's not dye-based. Okay, so they're not transparent, so that you do get some opacity, you know, with the use of them. For me, I'm going for translucency. Okay, it means you can kind of see through it, but it's not completely, you know, blocking out what we have there. And the more opaque you want, there's, you know, you just kind of add more. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Okay, that is the thing that I'm always doing for textural differences and kind of illumination. Let's take a white gel pen. A lot of people ask me, hey, what kind of brand pen was that? This is a Uniball Signo pen. Okay, Uniball's the brand. Signo is the name of the model. It doesn't have like a size, unless that's at 0.1. I don't know. Uniball Signo Angelic Color. I didn't even know this. Uniball was made by Mitsubishi. Okay. Going in, adding all these little highlights into the grassy area. We added a lot of brown, a lot of green in there. And it looks okay, but it looks fairly soft. And I like to add crisp into soft. Okay. They kind of act as highlights as well. Those little dots in there like that. Over here too. Okay. Let's add some specular light into the water. It's where water is kind of really sparkly and reflecting lighting. You can see these rocks in here are dark dots. This is a light dot, so it's kind of bringing that same shape, but in a complementary value. We have light dot next to dark dot. Okay, oops, sorry. And maybe add a few little highlights, some more highlights back in the background. It's kind of a, little quiet little scene. I just put a few little highlights on this. Backpackers or hikers. Kind of bringing these highlights into different elements within the scene, different distances, foreground, midground, background, and that's just to kind of bring a continuity, okay, to the scene. Here's the foreground down here, and I think it gets a little dark in here, alright? So maybe there are some, I'm kind of looking through these reeds and where there's a little opening, back to that grass that I stamped over. I'll put some of these white little dots. Maybe that could represent light shining through, or maybe some little white flowers growing in the grasses in both near and far. Okay, those little dots in there kind of brings that area to life a little bit. Okay, let's see. There you have it. The river, morning river walk, or something like that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the scene, and thanks for watching.